welcome here to a kerfuffle panel show. And I am surrounded, I don't know how I'm looking on your screen, but I am at the epicenter of Land and New Homes excellence here. It's a man sandwich, let's be honest. I have Matt Nicol on one side, Kev Ellis, and then fantastically supporting me, I have Andrew Dickinson and Keith Stacey from Brecon and Brecon. How are you all, gents? You're looking lovely, just genuinely lovely on a day like this.
Thank you.
Very kind. Thank you. I'm good.
Good. Okay, right. Well, we'll kick straight off because we've got a lot to talk about how Land and New Homes can support, transform your agency depending on how you're doing it. Kev doesn't want this to be a hard sell, so he's not going to do it, but I'm definitely going to ram it down your throats. As long as I believe what they're saying is true and can be supported, which I think we're going to see that. So the title of today's panel show, guys, as we were talking about, is what impact does a Land and New Homes department really make to your agency? So it would be really interesting, just as you kick off the answer to this question, would you mind, I know I've just introduced you there, but just give a bit of context about your agency, where you are, size of agency, and then just give a bit of background about how you first got involved with Kev Ellis and the Land and New Homes network. And he used to be a groupie because he was on the show every week, but he's derbed me a little bit recently. So I'm going to whorishly go to Matt Nicol now to try and win him back. Matt,
well, thank you. I never thought I was going to get another invite. I thought Mincy got in the way of things, but yeah,
he's a big fella.
Well, I'm Matt Nicol. Company's Nicol & Co. We are based in Worcestershire. We're kind of just in the Midlands, West Midlands specifically. Got offices in Droitwich, Worcester, and Malvern. I got a very nice card from Kevin back in 2017, I think it was, after we'd won an award. I'm not sure what it was. It was an EA Masters type award, but it piqued my interest. And as a business, I was kind of running the show as a director, being pulled back into a lot of meetings as opposed to what I was doing before, which was, the opportunity to sell, win business, and do some negotiation. And actually, it was that challenge really that I thought, as a business, we had a good stranglehold of the market. We had good market share in the patches that we were in, which was Droitwich and Worcester at the time. Yeah. And I wanted the new challenge. So I know Andrew's good for stats, so I thought I'd better get some figures together. But back in 2017, going back to your question about the impact it's had, 2017 we did about 60 grand in fees in new homes. In 2019 we did 470 grand in fees in Land and New Homes, and 2020 obviously was a different year, 295. 2021 so far 201. We've done over 1.2 million in Land and New Homes fees to ourselves as a business since we did it in 2017. So it's been obviously financially it's been superb for us. Good margin in it, 25% margin, 300 grand on the bottom line. It's like it's had a massive impact from us financially. I think for us also, we kind of feel that the presence that we have is even better now because we've got signage up and down the roads really. So like we've got some sites and developments that's got our name all over the place, along with all our for sale boards in our towns and in the cities. So it's been great, I think, just to grow our market share locally.
Thanks for that. That's a really detailed, and Andrew's got to live up to his stats now as you've set the stall there. Could I just ask though as well, just following on from that, had you always envisaged Land and New Homes being part of the business, and it was just a case of getting round to it, or was it really Kev that opened your eyes to the full opportunity that was available there? How did that kind of develop in terms of the business?
Yeah, I think the opportunities that we were getting were kind of organic opportunities, but when we were given the data to actually see what was there and going on around us, it gave us the opportunity to kind of really focus on, right, so if that's happening, who's going to go and actually have a word with them? Who's going to push? What we're going to be able to offer them? What can we do that's different to most estate agents? And for us, actually, we set up a Land and New Homes department straight away. It was kind of headed up by me. We employed 2 straight away, but we went and we had the resi sales team and lettings team doing a fantastic job. It meant I could just take this and run with it. And with the opportunities that are out there, and you wouldn't believe there's so many, but with the opportunities that are out there, it wasn't a hard job to get some sites underway and to get the ball rolling. The team loved it because obviously for us as a business, we were taking a bit of a a jump into a new territory where no other agent was really doing that well. So it just added to the value that we were able to offer. So yeah, I mean, back on that day when kind of I met with Kevin Ian for the first time, it was really looking at our patch so they knew where we were, and then us actually just having a real look at, right, so these are the applications that are going on at the moment, that's already under construction. Who are they working with? If they're not dealing with an agent at the moment, you know, why don't you go and be the agent for them? And yeah, it's fantastic. Worked really well.
So you've got a combination of things going on there by the sounds of it. If we're looking for the breadcrumbs of success of all this, it's like, first of all, you've got the experience of what, you know, Kev's obviously been doing this for years, the contacts, but it sounds like the data is the secret sauce that brings to light all those opportunities as well, which obviously these guys procure, develop, and deliver back to you as actionable opportunities.
We wouldn't have known where to begin looking. I mean, we can all do a Rightmove search and see what's on the market at the moment with either your competitors or on with the developer themselves. But you really wanted to get into those people before that stage. So yeah, that's something that, secret sauce you could call it, but that's something that we get on a regular basis from the network. And it gives us a real focus on who we need to be chasing and who we need to be speaking to. Excellent,
thank you. I'm going to go to Keith now because he's looking intensely at me. So Keith.
And an array of certificates behind him.
Well, no, look at that, shameless. He knows I'm on a warthog, so that's. I'm going to come straight back to it. So, Keith, what was your journey like? Did it mimic what Matt's was, or was yours a very different, kind of evolution?
So I'm Keith Stacey. I'm MD of Brecon and Brecon. We're a 7-office network in Oxfordshire, quite an established firm. We've been around for about 75 years. New homes was an element of the business that we had just never done. We're a traditional resale and lettings business. We've got an asset management part to the company as well. And it was about 6 years ago. You know, we're looking at the market, looking at what other agents were doing, and we thought it was fairly dull, fairly lacking in any imagination. And that's when we started our sort of new homes journey. So that's about 6 years ago, and I've been, I think, Kevin, about 4 years with you guys, maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
So I'll be honest, we struggled a little bit at the start, and then obviously once we've engaged with Kevin, you know, we had the opportunity to actually sort of widen the net. For us, it's an absolute no-brainer. We've invested quite heavily into it. I think, you know, firstly, we think we're doing it, you know, properly in inverted commas. We're now at a position where it's generating about 1/3 of our sales income. So it's gone from a very small part of the or zero part of the business up to that sort of level. So it's effectively like a really strong additional branch from an income perspective. And then if you look about the other benefits as well, so you know, you've got that new home site, so therefore you've got that presence in the community, you've got all that marketing. You're obviously selling, so you've got the fees from the sales. You potentially could sell to investors, so you can drop in investors back in again. And then also once you've sold that site, you've engaged with all those buyers. So hopefully, if the system's correct, you know, 4 or 5 years time, when the resales start coming to the market, you can start tapping into those as well. So that was the route we took. We took into it, and you know, we haven't really looked back since then.
Those are just massively compelling figures. Obviously, looking at that in terms of how that's now developed into the business. I did like your bit at the beginning there. I've been going 75 years. I think you said the other day that I've pretty much been mis-selling to you for 30 years of those. So again, thanks for coming on the show. That's it shows that there's a lot of forgiveness in this industry, and that's why I've made my success here. What I like about that, your honesty there, that it might not have hit the floor running in quite the way that the Matt's experience was. So, and I'm guessing, and this is to you as much, Kev, that will be a more common scenario, will it, where it takes a little bit of effort to get the ball rolling, as it were?
I think if you look at how a lot of agents approach it to start with, you know, fundamentally an agent wants stock. So the temptation is you go knocking on a house builder's door and it's all about what you want, and you know, not always about what the developer wants. And we have to be realistic here that to really have true currency with a house builder, we have to be offering different types of services. So land, from Matt's point of view, Matt really embraced land. It was the beginning part, wasn't it, Matt? So
Yeah,
in their
definitely.
part of the journey, they started with land. Probably from Keith's point of view, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I think Keith did, he offered house builders a very, very compelling marketing solution that was way, way, way out there in terms of any local competition. And as a result, that attracted attraction, probably actually resulted in his competitors raising their game. You know what it's like, it sort of keeps getting higher and harder and harder. But it then does come back to land. And I think most people, where it does go wrong is they don't put enough emphasis or focus on just even land activity, even making an effort to understand the developer's land requirements, starting to source sites, starting to engage with the planning data, because frankly, the planning data, which in some instances could be 3, 4, 5 years old, until an agent gets a grip of whether those sites are built, they're under construction, they're sitting there, or whatever, you're just clueless, so they almost think, and it's sort of like this lucky, the agents in the lucky chair when their board goes up on a site that they didn't know anything about. Well, it's been in the planning system for a good period of time. So it's not, and that's in the public domain. So it's how you sort of go. I use the expression before we come along, and it's the truffle hunting stuff and knowing what you're looking for.
And that again is one of the key aspects. I said it's not just about the data, because actually the raw data is out there, but making sense of that data, turning it into actionable information. And you do have your little army of people out there, don't you, validating land sites and everything else. That's one of the big benefits, isn't it, from your proposition back to your agents?
I think the land bit is something that, and I get this really, Matt is a model agent in the sense of how he approached it from sort of a nothing to start with. So that's not to undermine what anyone else has done, but Matt took the view, because we were able to go in sort of a nice stage approach, that it wasn't that they already had a number of sites on the market or whatever. So organically it started. If you were starting a business today, where would you start? And they put a lot of effort into that land research. The land guy comes on board. They build relationships with house builders. They start having good conversations with the developers, what they want. All of a sudden, things are starting to unravel. And a big piece was that even just by adding a land functionality or even new homes into their core brand, all of a sudden, landowners who might not have known where to go to before were just drawn to this great agency or this great brand as a go-to place. Now, in the same way, if you look at the stuff that I know Andrew's working on, and likewise Keith, all of a sudden, I won't steal Keith's thunder, but Keith's working on a mega deal at the moment, which would be life-changing for any agent. Well, those opportunities, regardless of whether your market's a low-end value or a higher, it's all relevant. These deals are there to be done. So yeah, we do put a lot of focus on the land side.
I'll be back to you there, Keith, to talk about that investment opportunity that I can ride in at the 11th hour to help out with. Andrew, your good self, what was your experience? Just give us a bit of background about your own business as well, and then talk to us about how this department is affecting your own group.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Andrew Dickinson. I run Oakwood Homes, 4 offices in East Kent. We've been established 17 years. I think it was either 16 or 17 I first met up with Kevin, and we were at another function. We got talking about what was about to happen, and I immediately got it. The Land and New Homes was a big part of the potential opportunity we got as a business that we just weren't tapping into. And having been in the industry for as long as I have, which at the time was well over 3 decades, I'd never really understood it. I tried to play with it. I tried to win stuff, and we were okay. We did a little bit. We fraternised with some of the developers quite clearly, but as we started to understand how this unravels and how important it is to actually have the land and where the opportunity lies and so on, it all made perfect sense. In the way it's impacted us, I'd like to state some stats, but 87.65% of them are made up anyway, so I won't do any. But the key thing for me was it's had a massive impact on our brand awareness, because Matt alluded to it earlier. You've got big boards everywhere. You're not restricted by planning on this certain size board you've got to use. and all of a sudden, you know, your profile increases as a business in quite an inordinate way, because the credibility that you've got with the public, and if a big developer like that is entrusted their business with somebody like you, you must be all right to as an agent, and so that helped us. And of course, as both Keith and Matt spoke about as well, the spin-off business. And the longevity, if you've got nurture journeys and you've got things working right and you've got client services working, your data and so on, you're future-proofing your business. And you know, we're always going to have a need for houses. There's always going to be a property demand as the nation grows, and you know, 7 billion becomes 9 billion, or whatever they predict by 2015 in the world. Sorry, 70, whatever. But yeah, it's a need that's always going to be there. So it opened up our business massively, and the income stream from that, mortgages, conveyancing, people that want to buy, they've got a house to sell. That's all the immediate business. Then change you build on the back of it. And if you start to add all that business in, which you may or may not have got, you don't know, they might have bought something else from you apart from new homes. It's quite hard to decipher that or differentiate, but the income is phenomenal, and I just wish I'd done it a lot earlier than I had.
That's always a telling sign, isn't it, where you wish you'd done it ages ago. That's always the defining comments. And I think what I take from your conversation there, while there's prop tech charlatans like me telling you it's got to be a full digital experience all the way, you know, you can't replace boards breed boards, can you? And that local brand knowledge and reputation is just absolutely vital and still delivering.
Yeah, 100%. And that the spin off of social media as well, because you start pumping out sponsored adverts and things on social media that are specific to a site, and that gets to different people. That's a different whole sort of marketing platform that we didn't used to have. But you embrace that, and technology and YouTube and so on. It's and I think, you know, Keith's the master of that from what I've seen and heard. But it has huge opportunity, and it's stuff you just wouldn't have been doing if you don't have these new home sites.
Well, Keith hasn't joined me on TikTok yet, so let's not quite give him all the plaudits he deserves. Guys, is it? It's obviously absolutely fantastic in hearing the success, this kind of virtuous cycle that it just supports other parts of the business and vice versa. Is it not right for everyone though? Who would it not be right for? Is there a profile? Is there something in your makeups that mean that you were always going to make this work once you teamed up with Kev? Or are there some people that it's just not going to happen?
No, I guess I wouldn't want to talk wrong about my competition, but
Go on.
Some don't get it. No, some just don't get it. And if they've been fortunate enough to win a site for whatever reason, they've just done nothing with it. They've really kind of squandered the opportunity. So yeah, I guess coming in second on a site where things have started to go towards stock plots, which is where the developers really don't want to be. It's, you know, it's money sat there on the ground. You can really impress them, and then it's almost like without competition on the next site. You go in and pitch, but you're already 90% there. Yeah, I guess a lot of the network members that are in the Land of New Homes network, we probably are all a little bit the same. We're not thinking we know it all. We're willing to kind of take advice. We get, you know, told what we could be doing a bit more on, and we do get that from the network. And Ian and Kevin, they both they do push us as a business owner, and I don't mind that, because otherwise I've got no one else who tells me what to do. So it's other than my missus. So yeah, I think the agents that are being successful in the Land of New Homes kind of arena at the moment are keeping their eyes open to the opportunities, understanding that they always need to be thinking of that next bit of technology. Sometimes that's for kerfuffle to then obviously latch onto, but the next bit of technology that kind of puts your developers ahead of their competition as well, and makes their property appeal to the public. I suppose that's kind of where we bring a bit more to the table.
Okay. I'll just add something in there, Matt and Whaley, because I think one thing that's really interesting with a lot of agents, when they've won a site, it's all about that site. You know, for some agents, it's all about that site, and they're not doing enough then. So I call it like eating their way through the fridge. They've had this stock, they've got it on, and then they end up with this spiky income mode. And the spiky income is no use for any agent. So when you're starting to leverage in a team And, you know, all of these guys that are on here now, they've all got dedicated teams now, or people in their business. Well, having lumpy highs and lows or whatever, that's not good for anyone. So we've got to constantly sort of be aware of what the roles are that everyone's fulfilling. And I think picking up on the point there that Matt said, that in reality, you know, agents don't give it enough, they don't devote enough time. You know, if you look at the average typical independent estate agent, the owner of the business, depending on whether his lister's off, he's backlisting houses, he or she or the accountant, the marketing director, they're, you know, solving all sorts of other things. So it doesn't get the attention. And oh, I'll tell you what, yeah, let's pick up the planning applications or whatever. And if you apply it in that way, it will never work.
Okay. And can I just ask then, if I'm an agent and I've never done land and new homes before, where do I start? What's point zero, as they say?
I think point zero, from my point of view, in simple terms, the starter has to be understanding what is out there. Okay, and that might sound a bit of an obvious one, but this isn't for me about an agent going out and saying, I'll tell you what we're going to do, we're just going to go and look for land. Okay, you go start looking for land. Even if you did a deal, it's going to take you 18 months, 12 months at best for that to actually yield you any cash. So the only way you're going to yield cash straight away is either going to be by brokering a consented site, so a site that's got a planning consent that vendor would be minded to sell, or indeed that vendor is then making the decision to bring the stock to the market. And was something very interesting earlier in the year, which when all agents were massively busy in this frenzy of you know, sales activity or whatever, we did a big exercise across 6 of the regions in the country where our team went out and did some really proactive nurturing for opportunities. And what was really interesting, on the planning visits they did where sites were under construction, they actually got their shoes dirty and walked on site and said to the developers, you know, what are you doing and whatever. And pretty much in every instance, those developers didn't have an agent on board, no one in the wings, and more surprisingly, no agent had actually been out there canvassing them or prospecting them or whatever. And I think very often, I don't know if the guys would agree, but I think sometimes they might have had it earlier on in their journey, and there's almost this fear factor of, you know, this, do I deserve it, or how do I get it, or I'm going to get found out if I don't know what I'm doing. Actually, it's just by being a bit ballsy and really going with, you know, the aim of what's a win-win. So if the win-win for you is you want to win instruction, the win-win for the developer is he wants to know where his next site's coming from.
Yeah.
And we've got an instance at the moment where a land deal was done. They were held up with delays on their sales pipeline from another site they were in the process of selling. All of a sudden hit this massive issue around the funding for the completion, to be able to facilitate the completion on the next site. And we've been able to step in because of a development finance brokering solution that we were able to offer, and we've actually helped that developer secure their funding. Well, you can imagine in the eyes of that developer, not only does he think we're really good at, all the agents really good at selling houses, but now we've just helped him facilitate access to the funding, and we've brought land opportunities. Well, in the main, this isn't in the psyche of your average agent who's very much wired sales, lettings, mortgages, conveyancing. It's just not in there. And the problem is, as more and more competition are coming in and lower fee bandits are out there, you know, the great bit that if an agent does this properly, the ability when we're in control of land is to influence much, much higher fees. Yeah. The fee position is very different. There's not this race to the bottom that they may be experiencing in their own agency. So even in the same town, they might be able to get 2%, whereas from a developer, whereas they were only able to get 0.75 from a second-hand vendor. So it's very, very different demographics.
Okay, cool. What about you guys? What would you suggest to anyone thinking of this? You know, where would you start if you were kind of having your time again?
Well, my view would be that if you look at the sort of the business model, if you look at like your resale business and you're trying to engage with, you know, thousands, tens of thousands of potential sellers out there, and then you look at the new homes business, you've probably got no more than say 100 players in your market. So it's actually quite a short list of people. And what we started off with doing, we just started engaging with them. So we pick up the phone. You will always have a conversation, or it's very easy to get a conversation with their land team, because their land team want to talk to agents, because as Kevin mentioned, they're always looking for their next site. Getting in front of their sales team is a different beast, but the land team, is your point of entry. So you'll be picking up the phone, you've been having a chat with them, getting a feel as to what they've got in the market. You can offer your valuation services. You can say, look, guys, you're constantly looking at sites, and developers are always looking at sites, and they're always having to go through sort of, back of fag packet type sort of calculations on GDV for the units. If you take what the average agent does and you up your game, you can sort of say, well, look, we'll put a report together. It's really detailed. Here's the comps reviews. And you start building that database going forward. All of a sudden, you become valuable to them. Then you might not get a site straight away, but you can guarantee the next time they've got an agent-free site, you're going to be knocking on their door. So that's something you can do really simply from the start. You can start having that gate. You can start building those connections with developers in your area, and you'll find very quickly that all of a sudden they'll start coming to you. Then they've looked at sites. Can you help me with this site, Keith? Can you, we're looking at this, and what do you think? And those relationships can come forward, really quickly. And as long as you don't mind constantly asking the question about, guys, we do need to be engaged on the sales side as well. It will come through, and you get the first, you get the second. And it's pretty straightforward, really. It's not complicated. It's old school agency. We're in a people business. It's picking up the phone. It's talking to people. It's no more complicated than that. Going forward, I think there will be investments to be done in the business. If you want this to be a decent business and a decent part of your operation, you have to appreciate you can't do this. Your sales manager can't do this on the side. At some point, you're going to have to make that investment in people who can pick it up and run with it. But the start point, I think anyone can do. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward.
Cool, thank you. Andrew, I hear loads of agents say that developers simply don't use agents. What would your response be to that?
That isn't true. I think some developers don't use agents because agents just aren't good enough, quite frankly. And a big failing, I think, a lot of agents is that they consider, or they treat developers the same as they do a vendor. And if you do that, you'll quickly get a bloody nose, because they are completely different. One is a B2C sale and one is a B2B. And my experience has been the conversations you can have, the reasoning you can have with developers is so much more frank and straightforward and enjoyable, quite honestly, than an emotive vendor with selling their property. So I think there are definitely developers that prefer to sell themselves on site, but there's still opportunity. Who they're going to use for local valuations, who they're going to use for other recommended business mortgages. They might have that sewn up, they might not. That's not true. They will use agents, but they're very discerning, and they'll only use agents that they think are decent.
The big bit I just add to that is about adding value. And if I did a lot of research before we set the network up, and I asked sort of a number of the volume house builders, what do you like about agents? What don't you like? And the big piece was that they loved the fact they could get exposure through the branch network, and the agent was very much ingrained in their local area. What they didn't like is the fact that agents typically compared apples with apples. Yeah. And it's back to the car analogy. Is the BMW 3 Series really the same as the Ford Mondeo? Well, okay, they're broadly the same size car, but the specification, the design element, all those other things. And if somebody doesn't appreciate that, Keith, you've had it on the site. I know you've been disposing. The values that you'd be quoting for, let's say, a Bellway or Persimmon product for the same house might be very different to what you might say to Crest Nicholson or Berkeley, because frankly they're different developers or whatever. So unless we get in the psyche of that and we really can demonstrate the value add, you're on a hiding to nothing.
But that's all learnable is the key, isn't it? You can develop that knowledge of what they're looking for.
Well, you know what good and bad's like in your own. If you're going out with your wife to go and buy a new kitchen or whatever, what you might be thinking, what she's thinking might be polar opposites. Well, what quality is, but equally then you'll know what the budget is. Well, it's where it's commensurate to really see and add value. Now, there'll be some locations where you're absolutely building on a price. And no matter what you did, whether you built the house 1,000 square foot bigger or whatever, it's got a ceiling level. So it's all about how we can optimize. And particularly, I think where house builders are at the moment, the value engineering piece, and also the agent being wide in that way for the development consultancy is absolutely critical. And Matt, you've had it with the advice you've given to that client that we spoke about the other day of the product mix, wasn't it? It's where you add your value piece, really.
Definitely, and they're putting an application in based on the fact that we've given them a report that kind of says this is what you need to be building more of, and that'll be great for us because that's a very exciting site that's going to add a lot of stock to our pipeline in the coming years. But I think when you say kind of developers don't use agents, you are right, and some of the bigger ones, what you'd kind of consider a golden goose, sometimes it's not worth chasing after. As Andrew said, still worth kind of keeping your ear to the ground with them because you might get part exchange opportunities. You might also get stock plots at the very end if they want to move person off site and they don't want to have a presence there. Then that can be when an agent kind of picks up a few fees at the end. But I think to begin, I started off with the smaller ones who were good quality builders but didn't have the marketing know-how, certainly didn't have a database, didn't have anyone other than their own kind of, I guess, their logo on the Harris fencing as opposed to actually any signage of coming soon or anything like that. And you'll drive past them all the time. And if you get your board up, if you get the coming soon message, you start looking after that database for them. Of course, we've got opportunities to advertise on portals, but you probably got buyers on your list. And that's kind of where we made them realize that it'd be daft if they just tried sticking a sign up and thought lots of vehicles go across that B road and they're going to find the site that way. And then when you start adding in the other things that you can bring to the table, CGIs, videography, drones, whatever it is, content, websites, mini website, all these things, developers then really kind of think, I can't do this without you. I'm going to be building here next. Can you come and tell me what I should be building and how I should go about it? And that's the kind of the way that it now does work. 2017 income from new homes was good, but it's now really got momentum, and it wasn't quick. Don't expect it to be fast, but it does feel like the flywheel. It's spinning now. It's working on its own, and opportunities come to us quite regularly from people we've worked with in the past. So it's good.
I find that fascinating that it becomes genuinely a two-way thing in terms of you have input as well to asking about what sorts of homes should be built and everything else.
On Monday, we've got a client coming in who wants us to pick the kitchens with them, pick the bathrooms with them as sanitary ware. And this is their first development, which is really nice that they've kind of seen enough from everything that we've done in our pitch. And they've obviously instructed us already, but they want to make sure that they're building it up to the spec that we're pushing. So it is good. And then, they all mix in the same circles. I'm sure one developer doesn't just speak to his missus and no one else. He'll speak to other developers and he'll say, Nickel & Co sold it for me. That's kind of where you then get the inquiry. That doesn't mean you're pitching against 7. You've got you and maybe one other in the race. And we won sites that actually the developers wedded to an agent because they sold them the land, but they just don't want to use the agent. They bought the land through them, but they'll pay them off if they have to. They want to use us as the actual arm to market the units. So there will be, for those watching this, there'll be lots of opportunities in their own patch, hopefully not in Worcestershire. But there'll be lots of opportunities in their patch to go after.
So I can guarantee that they do talk to each other. I have been to the Watt House Awards, and there's a fair degree of talking that goes on between the fellow colleagues. But what I like about it, though, Martin, is if anything is true, being a local expert in anything is the key, isn't it? And the more that you can put that across to the more horrible phrase, but stakeholders in the whole property market, it can only be good for your brand and your business as a whole. Yeah,
and you see that the transfer window every January, you see people moving from one house building to another. So if you've got a good relationship with someone, you've got to keep it going, because they could be with one good firm this year and then somewhere else next year. And that's good for you because it could be an open door into an opportunity you weren't having before. So yes, it is. And I think that's probably why we as a business kind of focused on it and took it away from, as someone said, you can't expect your sales managers to just do it, because they've got a lot of clients that need their time. Whereas you, with a half an hour going for a coffee with one of these clients, you can get a lot off the back of it. You could win equivalent to 30 instructions that they were going to spend in time with vendors on in one conversation, and obviously the follow-up pitch. But it's good for the business.
it was, but you've reiterated a couple of times now, as everyone's really touched on as well, where I asked that question, who it's not right for. Again, that kind of approach where you want a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, kind of, you know, you need business today and everything else. This strikes me as you need to have the medium to long term vision to get the best out of this as well. You know, to not try and rush matters, because it will come. But like all the best things in life, you know, you need to wait for some of that.
Yeah, one of the things we got from the network, sorry, I don't want to be talking too much, but we got quite a lot of collateral quite early on, and we still use it today. But getting the rigger boots on, putting the hard hat on, getting a high vis and just rocking up to a site. We one of our best wins was 33 units, and he hadn't had an agent on site that had actually approached him for the business. But I had some collateral, and I was out doing our kind of our land foraging. Really, we were looking at sites that had got consent. We were going to check whether they'd been built. And we pulled up to this one and it was underway. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to stick the high vis on, put the hard hat on and just walk down the site. Everyone scatters because they think you're there for safety reasons and you're there to check on whether they've got all their correct policies in place. But the developer turned up, had a wander up to me and it turned into a conversation. We led to 33 units. We've just started selling phase 2 completed now. So it can have some quick wins if you're willing to do it. If you're willing to kind of just push yourself out your comfort zone, you can have some quick wins as well. But the land part, that is, I think you need to be aware that that's not going to be straight into the bank. It's gonna keep you going for years to come, because the land fee might come 2 years after you found that site that's going to go get consent, and then you've got to think they're going to be on a 52-week build program to build them out, and then you're going to get all the resales off the back of that. It's kind of 3 years worth of business, but it doesn't come in day one. So
got that. Well, the last time I wore a high vis and a hard hat, it certainly took me out of my comfort zone. So I'm gonna try and do a lot more with that if I can do.
I seem to remember you buying a high vis jacket in Boeing's place when we went to Seattle.
I actually bought 2 jackets, didn't I? I still don't understand why I did that. I don't think I got it all worn, but anyway, yeah. Okay, look, you mentioned there again though, Matt, and I want to talk to everybody else. I've seen the quality of the marketing and the assets that Land and New Homes can provide out to agents. Can you just touch upon maybe, can we kick off again this? I want to know more about this legendary opportunity you've got, Keith, as well. Talk to us how you pitch to your house builders. You mentioned obviously it's important to get you're just dealing with a smaller number, so you should be able to spend more time and energy on this. But talk us through on average how our pitch works for you.
I think it's, going back to what I said originally, it's about building that relationship. So I think when you're pitching to them, they're already aware of you. They know what you can do. And I think the point Matt made earlier on is very relevant. I think as an agent, you can actually add a huge amount of money to their bottom line just by making sure they've got the mix right.
Yeah.
Never assume that any developer really understands the local market. I think, if you're a good, strong agent, you should be telling them, are you building 2 beds? Are you building 3 beds? Are you building 4 beds? If you're building a 4 bed, does it need a single garage? Does it need a double garage? What's the optimum size to build that house out to actually maximize their return? And if you look at, and I'm sure Matt and Andrew and Kevin would agree, how many times you've actually started off with a site plan and you've looked at it, how many of those site plans have you ever looked at and said, you know what, guys, that's perfect, I wouldn't change it? Because I've yet to find one. We're always coming in, we're always commenting. So the earlier they can engage with us, I think the more value we can add. And when I'm talking about adding substantially in excess of what my fees are for actually selling the units at the end of the day.
Wow.
On the pitch side, we did take a slightly different route. We've got our own in-house creative team. For us, what we need to do is get them into the office. We'll get them into the office. We'll sit them down. We've done stuff in the past where we've already had the drone up over their site. So we've actually sat them down, and what we're actually showing them is their site from the air, with a little bit of a teaser video already lined up. That's the way we're going. We're massive fans of social media, and I genuinely think that is where agents need to be going at the moment. Portals are dull. They're a little bit lazy. I think if you're like sitting down and pitching to your developer and you're saying, well, what I'm going to do, bear with me here, I'm going to stick it on Rightmove for you. You're not going to get anywhere. You've got to bring something to the party. You've got to have that sort of differentiating factor, and I think for us, it's the creative team inside, but also the old school. We've got a new home sales team. Andrew, I'll give you some stats now if you want. Generally speaking, we register about 450 new applicants every month across our network of 7 offices. On that initial registration, sorry about the noise if you can hear it, I've got a hotel being built next to me. On that initial registration, about 15% of our buyers state that they would consider buying a new home. 15. My new home sales team is tasked to speak to every registration. It's a cloud-based CRM system within 48 hours of their initial registration. So they'll pick up the phone and say, "Hi, you registered with X office, yesterday. I've got your details here." And we run through a check. I'm bringing from the new home sales team. Can I just talk to you about the benefits of buying a new home? And we can get that 15% up to about 50% of people, not that they will definitely buy a new home, but they're happy for us to engage with them and talk to them about new homes. So if you're a developer coming to me, I'm going to say, well, look, first of all, I've got that network of local buyers, and I've got a specialist team who's picking up the phone to every single newly registered applicant that we've got and having a talk about, specifically about new homes. So those people on their own, left to their own methods, probably would look at new home sites. Yeah. But now they're on our database, they've had that conversation, we can start pushing out those new home sites to them. So it's that local connect, plus a little bit extra on the marketing side, and also hopefully that you've already built up that relationship and you've given that advice, you've added value to them anyway. Combination of the three is where we're bringing our instructions from.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that feedback there, Keith. And Kev, we were at a bash yesterday. You were talking about a particular pitch you've done. Can you talk about that in any more detail? That example?
Yeah. So we put a lot of energy into helping the agents with their pitch. So obviously, where we're asked, we'll always try and find a way to go along and actually help them with the pitch if they're a bit nervy or aren't sure how to best go about it. But we were approached by one of our agents down in the southwest, and it was on a 70 million pound GDV development, and they'd been asked to tender, and the site was actually outside of their core area, but obviously as a regional agent, they were approached because of their size and scale.
Yeah.
And we took a really different view, and I sort of this was a process that I adopted way back when, and I know Keith very much does it in terms of his business. And my view is that if you're going to pitch and you've got a contract potential that's worth a significant amount of money, we've got to go all in. And all in isn't a half job, oh, we'll just rock up and see how we get on or whatever. We've got to go all in, and we've got to invest some cash into the pitch. Now, in that particular instance, the one that we've won, so we knocked out 2 of the high-end agents that were obviously supposedly talking about an international London market.
Yeah.
But when we came to the pitch, we submitted our document, really good factual information, well written, well designed. With our in-house design team here.
I've actually got copies in my drawer. Yeah,
Matt's lucky enough to have a copy of it. So
juicy.
Matt will vouch for that one. But what we did was we made sure that when we actually got to the panel selection, if you like, for the pitch, and we had, they were doing interviews of agents over a 2-day period. We weren't there to talk about ourselves. We were squarely there to talk about the project. We'd done our work in terms of the effort and energy we put into the documents beforehand. So Bara, have you got any questions about our service or whatever? It's all about the project. And what we then started to unravel was a number of marketing initiatives. We'd gone to the effort of a video, or 3 videos actually, as it was. A thanks very much for inviting us to tender. Then we produced a lifestyle video for the scheme, and then we did a nice roundup video afterwards, sort of reinforcing things. And our client, which is now out in the open, our client's Greg Dyke. So Greg Dyke, of ex-BBC Director General and ex-FA Chairman, he's a guy that's worked in media all of his life. So we knew that. And so what do? You serve up media. You serve up things in a different way, and as a consequence, it went a long way. But it's not a quick thing, and I think too many agents, when we start talking about the pitch and the structure, even down to the quality of local imagery, you'd be amazed at how many agents don't even have a database or a bank of really good stock imagery of their local area. They can't even sell their area. Yeah. So we focus a lot around get this stuff in the bank and let's shape the pitch accordingly. But with the print and the way we sort of went about the effort, it was really stand out. It definitely passed the so what factor, and in this instance, the combination of expertise that was demonstrated on the day and the content that went into the pitch, as Matt's alluded, it's as their feedback to us, no one had come close to that sort of
well, they're probably all racked up with pie charts of their market share, which of course.
Well, it's interesting because you're absolutely right, and interestingly, in this particular instance, when it came to pricing, we were really, really ballsy in terms of what we felt our pricing strategy was going to be, and this site was very, very, very unique. It was an old fort. It was amazing coastal view, so not like a sea view, which is just pitch black at dark. This has got lots of movement coming in. Plymouth Naval bases there, and you've got submarines popping up. You've got all sorts going. It's all really active coastline and quite rugged. And we, our advice to the client was, we think that you've got an opportunity here to go to deliver a 5-star concierge service as part of the offering.
Yeah. And
they were like, well, what do you mean? We think that we're going to achieve this level of value. And they really pushed us on the value. And if I told you that the value that from the first sale that we've done is over £550,000 more than a valuation that a local agent gave just on one house, as a concept of what we had advised, and a cash buyer. So that sets Red Book value for the rest. And we're going to launch it. I don't know when this video is going to out, but we're going to be launching it, over the next couple of days. And, we've already got a diary full of people, cash buyers coming from across the country, that haven't been put off by price. So it shows that, you can be too rigid as an agent, just thinking you can't ever break ceiling value. And time after time after time, we keep seeing value records being broken. And because we've got to get out of this mindset of just assumptive. So we've got to have the conviction and be ballsy in our pitch to back up our why we think that. And if the client then believes you and you've got a good strategy that sits behind it, that's the detail, that's the effort.
Well, I'm glad you weren't going to go hard sell on me.
I know it's not a hard sell in that sense. It's more, I'm very passionate about the pitch.
Of course you are.
And I think, the pitch.
Also, Kev, I mean, it comes across, and in terms of, first of all, you're not just doing the same old, are you? As Keith was talking about there, that ability to have a kind of sniper shot, both in terms of, not everyone's Greg Dyke, but understanding actually the needs and requirements of the person you're sat in front of is just the critical elements of sales, isn't it? Which people so often forget.
If we put that pitch in front of Fred, the local builder, he'd think we're charging too much money and just wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
But so there's a time and a place, you've got to cut your cloth accordingly. And, we've really sort of focused on this a lot more. It's not a one size fits all. No. Good case study makes a big difference. Being authentic of, show me another example. Where else have you delivered this level of value? Back it up what you're saying. And it's something that I think all of these guys that are on here now, they may not have had those case studies before, but by God, they've got them now.
Yeah, and it's Kev as well. You've also got a wonderful thing going on as your network has hit a real critical mass. Those case studies now are just cascading in from all of the different agents across the country, aren't they? So that's really useful, isn't it? In terms of
I'll give you a quick figure. So we in the last 4 weeks, as a design team here, we have produced 89 pricing reports for agents. And we've produced 46 pitch documents.
Okay.
Of those pitch documents, already, I think there's 30 that have already been secured, and there's a number of ongoing conversations. And they're not all big sites, so there might be a 5-unit site, whatever, but that's the sheer number of pitches, and that's just in 1 month. So that doesn't happen that's going on all across the country all the time. But if an agent doesn't tap into that, they're missing out on a large chunk of where we actually would bring some value. But these pitches are going on every day.
Yeah, incredible. Must be lovely to see across the network as well. I'm going to finish up just with a final question, if that's okay, guys, just to wrap up, because we're almost hitting the hour mark here. There's lots of talk that land is the lifeblood for house builders, of course. However, how do you go about finding and delivering those sites? I know you've alluded to it before, but can you talk to us, Andrew, about how you, in your patch, how you would be doing that?
Yeah, interestingly, we'll go about that quite differently to many local agents. They tend to only deal with the stuff that bites them on the nose, but we categorise them. Matt's alluded to it again earlier, but there's low hanging fruit out there. There's stuff that's got planning consent and it's actually not been built out yet. So we'll categorise whether something's been done, whether it's ongoing,
Yep.
etc. And then we'll have an ongoing regular prospecting program, and back to basics, picking up the phone, trying to find out who the owner of these sites are and talk to them. Get yourself in to engage with them and have conversations, because the world has moved on exponentially over the course of the last 10 years, and estate agency hasn't. Whether we think so or not, it hasn't. We're still way behind the curve, and people do like agents coming at them and being proactive in that end of the market. It's very different from a vendor.
Yeah.
So if a developer sees you being proactive and they want you're on site, as Matt said, with your hard hat, and you're demonstrating the hunger and the ambition, and you can deliver a result, they're interested to talk to you. So we go about it in many different ways, but you've got to understand what's the now business, what's the later business, and pick off the now business as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah, and rather than worry about that, that a state agency might not be moving at quite a speed, that's a tremendous opportunity for you guys to stand out from the crowd, isn't it?
Precisely, yeah. And that's what makes the difference between us going for a pitch or trying to secure something early stages from somebody who has not got that insight or prepared to put the effort in.
Excellent, thank you. Well, anybody else just want to ride on that point just before we wrap up?
I think from our perspective, very quickly, we track all planning applications now. So again, we spoke to Kevin about a number of times about the best way of doing this. So we're looking at local authority planning applications as they come through. If they're at a sort of sufficient level, we're then approaching the agent or the owner direct, and we're engaging at that stage of the process. So we're getting our foot in the door. We're obviously keeping our eyes open for opportunities. You might get some sort of commercial sites coming on the market where there's potential for resi development. Right. And I think thirdly, don't forget that the developers trade land. So again, if you've got those conversations going out with developers, they've bought sites, they may not build them out. You can have that conversation. You could pick up the phone to talk to them about what they're doing, and they say, "Oh, I've got this site for 30 units. We're probably going to sell it." And all of a sudden you're in, your other developers, you've got a list of 5 or 6 people who will buy it. And all of a sudden from nowhere, from just from a conversation, you've got this scheme, you've taken a fee on the land, you've locked yourself in for the sales. So there's, again, the standard stuff, the kind of boring stuff, looking at the planning applications. Just looking generally at the market for opportunities, you'll get a feel for it, and then just pushing stuff out. Maybe it's an auction or something like that. You can flick information over. And thirdly, those trades that they do internally. There's quite a few different ways where you can generate deals for your clients.
Fantastic roundup there. Thanks. Yeah. Anybody else want to finish us off with this just before I go back to Kev to get his thoughts?
I'll let Kev do the finisher, but the kind of in your local area as well, there could often be call for sites, and so of course you need to have the knowledge or the understanding or experience, and we've grafted at getting that. But when there's a call for sites in a local village or category A villages, you need to be able to write to those clients very quickly, and templated letters are prepared and ready for you. So we've had success 2 years down the line. It's taken a little while, but sites that we've now gone on and sold, and also brought us back in on another site as a result of it. Because we were proactive, we were very, very quick when there's a call for sites to say to a landowner or homeowner that had some good land, look, yours could actually tick the box here. This is something that you could really submit, and we'll submit it with you, and we'll show you how to do it. And it's that having the opportunity to spot it and also doing something with it. Proactive calls to landowners that are actually in the planning stage now, putting their applications in, is a very easy win. If you can get their numbers, then that works really, really well. Often they aren't prepared for which agent's going to be involved with selling the land, or even whether they're going to build it out themselves. So you can time it just right. You'll get on that journey, and then you follow them all the way through, advising as you go, really, as well. That's been very useful.
Excellent. Well, before I run off and get my hard hat, because I am so enthused now after listening to you guys talk about this, Kev, it must be thank you guys for being so honest and open about that and eye-opening. And I mean, it's just really, it's really alluring. And Kev, I can really understand. You don't really need to do the hard sell, do you? Whilst you have got members of your network that are doing this kind of stuff. And I know they've got to, I know your frustration has sometimes been with people that, just sit there and wait for it to happen. What we're seeing here though, is the people that actually, go out, listen to you and act upon it. These are the results, aren't they?
Yeah, I think if you took that these guys have embraced it fully, they've invested time, they've done whatever they've done. Now that may not be possible for your average agent, but that doesn't mean to say the opportunity doesn't exist for your average agent.
Yeah.
So it's one of the reasons we've reshaped the offering to really give agents whichever way they sit in the equation. So an agent can now become, let's say, an associate member. So that might give them access to be a distribution network member for us with new home stock that we secure, or we can help them win. But from the land side, we could take all of the land element away from them. So they could pass their leads, and our team are very competent at sort of manufacturing those into deals or whatever. So an agent is sitting on the fence thinking, oh God, it all sounds great, but actually I still don't feel confident on the land. That's easy. We can just remove that sort of problem for an agent. In the same way, we could just turn the tap on for anyone out there could become an introducer. We've got our postman, our DPD driver, they're finding sites for us. And we'll give them a referral fee, no problem in that. Yeah. The critical bit though, and I think this is a sobering element to it, and it isn't all about land, although land is if you want the control of a future order book, having land really gives you that property management moment. Yeah. But if we put it into perspective, a £20,000 land fee that you might generate, so a 2% fee on a £1 million site, which isn't a high number in a lot of locations, that will not only give you that 20 grand, it will give you 3 times that in the value of the new home sales income that you'll generate, let alone all of the associated spin-off business that goes with it. Yeah. So 10 grand or 20 grand is actually 60, it's 80 in total plus. And all of a sudden, year 1, 2, year 3, mind-blowing numbers of what that can do. And even for a small business, it's a game changer.
And you can take the risk out of this, Kev. Because you want to just highlight what you're able to do for agents now in terms of looking at their areas, looking at the opportunities, and you put something on the table specifically for our Fuffle members.
Yeah, I think from the agent's point of view, all of these guys that are on here now, they're what we'd deem as our partner member agents. So they've performed to a level, they've got the resources in place, and they're delivering month in, month out, etc. Now, around each of these guys' areas, agents shouldn't be thinking, oh God, I can't start it because it's going to take me 3 years, 4 years, or whatever. The reality is they can become part of the network now as an associate level agent. Yeah. We'll give them all the support that helps them to unlock winning new homes opportunities. Obviously, anything that we're generating in terms of land in their marketplace, obviously they'll be our preferred agent. But more crucially, they can pass their land leads to us, and we will make sure we turn that into something, but turn it into something for them for later down the line. Yeah. Or we're just feeding the whole land machine on a regional level. And I think the critical part here, and one of Matt's neighbouring agents is down in our office here today. I know, Matt, you were due to obviously meet him earlier in the week, but he's here today. He would, by his own admission, would say that he's a weaker agent than in terms of where he is on the journey. Yeah. The key bit is though, Matt's business and our wider regional offering can still give a huge amount of firepower to that that one office firm who maybe is very early on in the journey. And actually, back down to the southwest quickly, if we looked at all of the members that we've got in that area, we've got a number of single office firms, but actually combined with all of the network members in that region, if they were one entity, we would be the biggest single agency as an independent in that region. Offering that to a house builder, and let alone the access to the land opportunities and everything else that goes with it, is really, really big. And it's one of the reasons we've set up actually with each of these guys, looking well now beyond their core patch around, so Keith, we're looking more at the Thames Valley region. With Matt, we're looking more at the West Midlands region. Andrew, we're obviously looking more at the South East and Kent region, to give more, we want to grow with these guys. And like I said, it's a hierarchical thing, but the opportunities remain the same for every agent.
Cool. And just highlight again then, so if people are interested, you can actually come back to them and present some of the data on their own patch, and you're going to present.
I think,
members.
Yeah, look, in simple terms, for anyone that's watching this, as long as they don't conflict with an agent that's in an area where we've currently got an agent, we will happily share the key headline numbers of what the size of the prize is in terms of that area. And we'll go one step further as a kerfuffle exclusive. We'd be happy to identify what we believe would be 5 to 10 land opportunities that maybe they might want to go truffle hunting for. And, the chances are, as we kind of find all the time, they've actually been out to value half these houses in the past, but just their eyes weren't focused, or in truffle hunting mode, they weren't looking for, for the right thing.
Beautiful. Well, as ever, thank you guys. Go and have a look at Land and New Homes Network on kerfuffle.com. See what what these guys, what loads of other people are saying about the service and everything else here. I really appreciate you giving it up your time, Matt, Andrew, Keith, and Kev. Thanks once again for spending your time with us today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Cheers.
Cheerio.
Right. Cheers. Take care.